All right, hello and welcome back. This week I'm excited because Jay Rafferty has reached out to me about his new collection, Strange Magic. So, this is another poetry collection, and it's kind of hard to describe. It's not very long, so that part's easy. But in terms of content, it's not all over the place, but it's a little bit eclectic in a really interesting, unique, fascinating, well-written way. So, unlike some other poetry collections I've read, where maybe they all focus on grieving, or they all focus on love, or the loss of love, or kind of a combination thereof, this one instead, as I said, is eclectic, and it has kind of a combination of almost vignettes and reflections and almost just something about poetry that I just don't know the word for. I don't know if it's actually like a style of poetry or if it's just Rafferty's own style, but it's all very interesting. So as I said, it's not very long. It's just under about 40 pages, and each poem is no more than a page long. And I didn't not like the first handful, but they didn't really resonate with me, I suppose is the best way to put it. Like, I thought they were interesting. I couldn't really describe to you why they didn't resonate with me, but it was just something where I didn't relate to them, and I kind of hate using that as a rationale for liking something or not totally loving something, just because obviously not everything is going to be relatable for everyone, especially if it is kind of more of one of those like reflection or philosophical pieces. That said, there were a few, like there's one that's formatted as though it's a letter between him and his sister, and I really liked that one because I think it really captures the kind of nostalgic vibe that I think a lot of us adults feel about our childhood. Because he's like talking about how it's finally had a nice snow for the first time in a while, and how he really thinks that his nieces and nephews, and how he really thinks that his nephews would enjoy it. And he's like, do you remember when this thing happened? And it just like has that kind of joy that I felt like was kind of missing from some of the other poems in the first chunk. Not to say that all poetry has to be happy. I mean, I know for me, I usually only write poetry when I'm very emotional, and by emotional I mean sad. But I don't know, there was just like it was kind of like the beginning of a shift. And then there was another poem called I'm Magic Too, and that one I loved because it's a little ambiguous to me about if it was between the speaker and like a friend or a sibling or a lover or what the other person was, but I just like the first two lines are, I'm magic, and yeah, I'm magic too. I'm paraphrasing, but it's just kind of that lighter, like hope-inspiring, don't lose sight of your own magic vibe that I just really found profound and I liked a lot. There's another poem too where Rafferty talks about remembering. That's actually what the poem is called, and it's like simultaneously in present tense and past tense, not in terms of like the tense that it's written, but in terms of when the poem takes place, because it's about this little old woman, I'm guessing like a grandmother, who has gone through all these things in her life, and that's what she remembers about that time. And it was just very like nostalgic in a nice way, and that one was really relatable because it felt like all the times that you think about the stories that you've heard from your own grandparents. Yeah, it's a really unique, as I said, eclectic collection that I did actually really enjoy. And something that I really enjoy about poetry is that you can read it and then just like kind of get whatever you get from a first read and then move on with your life, or you can sit with it. And I think that this collection is really good for both of those things. Like if you just want a quick reading reset, this is a good option. If you want something that kind of makes you think about life, essentially, about the little magical moments of life, whether they're good magic or not so great magic or unsure about magic. And I say unsure about magic because I just had this interview. As some of y'all may know, I write for a little local paper, and this woman that I interviewed, and I'm paraphrasing again, said, even if I mess up, I don't worry about it too much because that is an experience and that has value. And I think that's something that kind of gets misconstrued a lot when we talk about like magical moments in life. Like we always think of it as a very positive thing. And that's not necessarily the case. I don't think magic necessarily has to be positive or negative. I think a lot of times it is just kind of those little moments that we don't see coming but have an impact, the ones that make us think. And that is what this collection was for me. It made me think, and it didn't necessarily like make me think deep. I totally could if I wanted to more, if I wanted to like do a deep dive analysis. But what I really like about this collection is that I don't feel like I have to do a deep dive analysis to appreciate the work. And I know that that's what's sometimes daunting about poetry, because I mean we're always taught in high school and middle school or whatever to analyze it and dissect it. But as I think Rafferty kind of points out, indirectly or not, depending on how you interpret it, you don't have to. It doesn't have to be that deep. Sometimes you can just be, and that in itself is an experience and is magical. So definitely recommend for you poetry lovers, definitely recommend for anyone who wants kind of like a reading reset. And yeah, that's all I've got for Strange Magic by Jay Rafferty. Next week I will be reviewing The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. So in the meantime, happy reading and thanks.